listening me. I would like to say a few words just about the project and some introductory results. The qualitative research involves a collection of a variety of empirical data such as personal experience, testimonies, narratives, life stories, interview transcription, observational, historical, visual, social, cultural artifacts such as text, images, or movies that describe routine and key moments in individual lives. Accordingly, qualitative researchers try to deploy a wide range of methods and techniques in their research practices, hoping to get a better understanding of the subject matter at hand. It's understood, however, that each new research practice can make the human living world more visible in a different way. My web page is a presentation of qualitative domain ontology project outlines. It tackles the problem of coarse abundance in the field of contemporary qualitative research that was perceived by Denzin Lincoln but hasn't been satisfactorily resolved yet. I would like to concentrate on few topics, especially about the methodological landscape of qualitative research field today. Paradox of plenty, this is the synonym or my interpretation of coarse abundance, knowledge discovery and the connection between the knowledge discovery and qualitative research today. Domain ontology as an example of knowledge engineering, and I would like to say a few words about ontology project I'm doing with my team, and some results from pilot studies, and finally I would like to give you a summary why we need the domain ontology and what are the future of this domain ontology. Let's start from methodological landscape. The multiparadigmaticity of qualitative research practice legitimates the coexistence of different methodologies and data analysis approach. But the contemporary qualitative research field is accompanied by exceptional creativity in milieu which since the 1980s have been resourcefully overcoming their own methodological limitations. It means that drawing up a coherent image of a present field is really a difficult task. Nevertheless, a need for orientation in the field of one's research practice, augmented by a desire to be on top of the game, leads to undertake an attempt to reduce this methodological complexity. Even the cutting-edge shapers of innovative trends in this subdiscipline admit to the difficulties in exhaustively and comprehensively reviewing the latest variations of qualitative research practice. These problems are visible in the fourth dimension of qualitative research practice. You can see here innovations, especially new technology and methodological data analysis innovation in qualitative research, huge diversity of methods and techniques accompanied by terminological chaos, what was mentioned by Gentles and others in 2015, credibility of qualitative research results, and lack of something we can call methodology meta-language will be helpful just to communicate each other. Clearly communicate. Moreover, these problems are manifested in a triple crisis of representation, legitimization, and the impact of qualitative practices. The representational crisis addresses the degree to which qualitative research or qualitative scholars can capture lived experience otherwise than in its textual representation. The legitimization crisis focuses on traditional issue of reliability, validity, and generalizability. The central question is how qualitative research can be evaluated. The practice crisis takes into account the problem: how are the outcomes of qualitative research to be used especially if the society is perceived only as a text. All of this observation lead us to the problem mentioned before, the paradox of plenty or the curse of abundance. I prefer rather to speak about the paradox of plenty, which can be paraphrased as that way. People create or use a lot of new innovative data collection or data analysis method and techniques, but the final result is questionable because of its low methodological value and a mixture of unsuitable, often different approaches. There are two standpoints towards those methodological landscape and the course of abundance problem. We can accept this diversity, terminological chaos, methodological disorder, and so-called creativity in the field of qualitative research practices because this is a kind of characteristic of this field, or just to find a solution which gives better orientation in this field and help to overcome qualitative methodological limits we face up to. I share the second solution. Let me give a small introduction about the process coming from CAQDAS to text mining. In the field of qualitative data analysis, the idea of knowledge discovery doesn't have a fixed tradition. In some sense, this idea is partly represented in the Glazerian version of grounded theory, as well as in quantitative content analysis approach, and partly by searching tools in CAQDAS software. GT methodology called this process serendipity, the discovery context. This is mentioned in the first column about the text coding. We have inductive, deductive, contextual approach to data coding. We discover from distinct from the context discovery and justification context, knowledge discovery in rather contextual data analysis, and all qualitative data analysis are rather team-oriented. We work with code books, and the code books is grounded in a context, should be grounded in context. I would like to make a digression here which concerns the development of computer-aided analysis in qualitative data in last few years. The process of qualitative data analysis is still developing, moving from CAQDAS, from first column to the second column, through grounded theory coding procedures, through content analysis dictionary-based codings, towards text mining and knowledge discovery, extraction, text extraction in corpora. When we look for content analysis, we are using a lot of coding tools. We try to automatize this process of coding. We use dictionary-based approach. We work with classification dictionary. And dictionary is very similar to codebook, but codebook doesn't classify the text, rather categorize, but dictionary is useful because it has its classification feature. And the last column is unsupervised data-driven, the text mining. And we can use linguistic approach to qualitative data analysis. I, for example, analyzed my own interview with corpus linguistics approach, with NLP rules, trying rather to search firstly and after to code. In my qualitative data analysis, I use a lot of corpus linguistic, natural language processing, and text mining procedures, such as stemming, lemmatization, n-gram structures, word sketch, disambiguation with CAQDAS analysis. But a lot of CAQDAS projects are rather focused on coding scheme than searching, information retrieval. We often forget that CAQDAS analysis should consist of coding and searching, and now, as I think, searching for coding. In my speech and research project, this change is visible in the process of extracting, coding, analyzing, and discovering the ways by qualitative research practice are conceptualized and represented in the corpus and vivid language of scholarly articles. Knowledge engineering and discovery research is a huge step in developing not only the computing science, but in a social and human science the same. In broader context, this development of computer-aided analysis of qualitative data is comparable to changes which are observed in the field of informatics, digital humanities, and social science computing, especially in the area of knowledge engineering, retrieval, discovery, representation, and management. Knowledge engineering is a field of artificial intelligence that tries to emulate a human expert, judgment and behavior in a given field. Here you can, an example, try to show the same process we can observe in qualitative data analysis now when we come from CAQDAS, traditional CAQDAS analysis, to text mining analysis, which is supporting rather. This is not a new approach, it's a supporting approach to CAQDAS analysis. We extract text, we extract knowledge, we code, we can use, for example, we can do this manually, semi-automatic, automatic. We have a lot of new solutions, linguistically grounded. About the knowledge representation, there are four fundamental types of knowledge representation: logical, semantic networks, frame representation, rule-based representation. Of course, ontology is one of them. And the last point is data management or knowledge management. I would like to use this ontology to create a kind of knowledge-based system for qualitative researchers to make a better orientation in the field, to make a better orientation what's going on in the field, and just to predict the new changes and new development of methods and techniques of data analysis and qualitative research. Ontology. About the ontology. Ontology is a study of concern about what kind of things exist, what entities or things there are in the universe, such as qualitative research, methodological work. And ontology may take a variety of forms, but necessarily it will include a vocabulary of terms and some specification of their meaning. This includes definition and an indication of how concepts are interrelated with which collectively impose a structure on the domain and constrain the possible interpretation of terms. Ontology is a hierarchical system of categories and relations about universal, this is basic, there are basic ontologies, or limited, this is domain ontology. This is what I'm thinking about the methodological world of qualitative research. However, it differs from other ways of representing knowledge. In that way, it not only provides a schema for description of a given field, but also uses formal logic tools, axioms, definitions, rules, to strictly define the hierarchy of its element and criteria for the classification. As a result, ontology don't only introduce a shareable and reusable representation of knowledge, but can also add new knowledge about the domain. What's important is that each ontology system has its own ontology language and can introduce terminologies, thesauri, dictionaries, classification, coding, and annotation system, which can be helpful in communication among scholars from different disciplines or different fields who are using the same qualitative research. Can we use this ontology as a solution for the paradox of plenty? I think that it will be very useful. The analytical model we create representing state of art of methodological knowledge will refer exactly to the concept of domain ontology. It will encompass a comprehensive catalog of up-to-date variations and their specifications in qualitative research practice. A domain ontology can be treated as a landscape of contemporary qualitative research field, which is anchored in the article's written language and applied in research practice. A domain ontology doesn't aim to exhaustively list of all concepts in the domain, but rather to build an abstract, extendable, philosophical conceptualization of the essence of knowledge in a domain. At the core of an ontology is ontological model, an architecture of how the world in a domain behaves or becomes. The ontology categorizes knowledge construction across three main dimensions: concept, modality, and context. Concept encompass five key terms: entity, further subdivided into generic and secondary, environmental elements, abstract concept, attribute, and system, combination of previous four types. Modality is a means for generating a variety of types for each of the described concepts. Contexts allow for linking concepts in a variety of ways, creating different words. I develop with my team the domain ontology of qualitative research practices, which is anchored in a written language, vivid language of scholarly articles. The domain ontology idea underlying this study is to create a model representing up-to-date knowledge of the field of contemporary qualitative research practices and ways they are conceptualized and performed. More precisely, employing qualitative and quantitative methodology of textual data analysis to examine scholarly articles published between 1990 and 2018 in 5 influential journals on qualitative research methodology: Qualitative Inquiry, Qualitative Research, International Journal of Qualitative Methodology, The Qualitative Report, and Forum Qualitative Social Research. These journals have been selected due to their positioning in the milieu of qualitative researchers around the world and by their high impact factor index, as well as their transdisciplinary nature. These articles convey a representation of various ways in which qualitative research is conceptualized and practiced, including those which, due to their novelty or exceptionality, don't yet belong to the academic canon, shaped in anthologies and textbooks. However, because of their briefer publishing cycle, methodological journals react much faster to changes taking place in the field of qualitative research, and therefore they facilitate the distinction of tendencies as yet unsanctioned by tradition. To a much greater extent, their content also reflect the polyphony which underlies the diversity we found in qualitative research practices. As a repository of individual testimonies of research experiences, the journal articles comprise an opulent source of information on the subject of the current condition of the field of qualitative research. We are looking for the structure in the project. We are looking for the structure of relation between research and analytical objects, dominant patterns in research procedures, nature and patterns dynamic, linguistic form of patterns expression, forms of diversity in research practices, research and analytical design, and new methodological trends. As you can see here, we try to classify about 6,000 articles. Of course, it will be reduced because not all of these articles are written in English, but English is the basic language we analyze this corpora. And we have 25,000 keywords, key phrase, tokens, which represents the methodological language. And these are more than 15,000 types of these methodological terms. And these 15,000 types will be classified in ontology concept. Data are split in two sets. Learning and testing, we just prepare a kind of coding set of test articles, and after we use automatic coding procedure using dictionary-based approach. Okay, let me say a few words about the analysis. We begin with textual corpus preparation, article selection, data structuring, and cleaning to improve data quality, because there is a huge noise in this text and the text should be prepared for NLP and text mining analysis. My first intention about this topic was just to develop a knowledge database system, qualitative methodology, analysis, and monitoring this methodology and analysis approaches in time. But in time, thinking about the contemporary field of qualitative research, I decided to apply domain ontology as a knowledge representation model, which is useful in reconstruction of semantic logical relationships between basic elements of this qualitative research field, such as method, technique, approaches, theories, epistemological approaches, etc., etc. All of these elements will be used in this domain ontology to create a different and up-to-date research designs. The cornerstone in the process of building domain ontology is a new approach to qualitative data analysis. I combine CAQDAS know-how with text mining and corpus linguistics. This is kind of marriage between social science computing, CAQDAS analysis, traditional CAQDAS analysis, and digital humanities. The analytical frame is grounded in CAQDAS searching and coding procedures, content analysis dictionary-based coding, and text extractions. Words and phrases, methodological words and phrases with natural language processing and text mining procedures. The final dictionary contains a predefined list of lexical semantic indicators of research methodology, keywords, key phrases, and sometimes short phrases, extracted manually and automatically by research team, and afterwards used in dictionary-based automatic codings of articles. Here are steps of building this domain ontology. So we started from corpus building and cleaning preparation, next phrase extraction with linguistics, software, classification, dictionary developing. This is teamwork. We do it manually, we check it automatically with text. We try to enrich this dictionary to cover in the future more articles which will be included in the corpus. And this domain ontology will be applied. We are in a step for 3 to 4, because in a few months we finish this dictionary classification and we'll try to adopt this to our corpora. And the last step will be domain visualization. We would like to adopt social network visualization, because ontology, as I perceived and as we can know from our previous basic exploration and field study can be rather perceived as a kind of network with structural and horizontal diversity. Okay, what about the ontology model, a basic knowledge? Ontologies are formalized vocabularies of terms covering a specific domain. They specify the definitions of terms by describing the relationship with other terms. The main components of an ontology are concepts, classes, relations, properties, instances, individuals, axioms, and data values that are stored as a semantic web documents. A concept represents a set of class, entities of things within a domain. Relations describe the interactions between concept or concepts' properties. The relations, like concept, can be organized into taxonomies. Instances are the things represented by concepts. Strictly speaking, an ontology shouldn't contain any instances because it's supposed to be a conceptualization of domain. The combination of an ontology with associated instances is what is known as a knowledge base. Finally, axioms are used to constrain value for classes or instances. In this sense, the properties of relations are kinds of axioms. Okay, this is an example how we perceive the dictionary structure in qualitative research field of our domain ontology project. Each ontology encompasses its own dictionary. Dictionary is a basic steps in building the ontology. A dictionary is the set of semantic and logical rules that describe the relationships among its elements. Because of paradox of plenty, there is a lot of classes, subclasses, and indexed objects in our domain ontology of qualitative methodological world. Developing linguistic domain ontology, we want to be close to the article language, to be close to ground our dictionary in data. The first step in building the qualitative research field domain ontology is a preparation of terminological dictionary via textual data extraction process. All articles have been analyzed in terms of their logical structure and content before coding. Next, words and phrases were established as a coding and extracting unit. I would like to show you an excerpt from dictionary structure. This is one of two examples covering meta class, data collection, and the second will be data analysis. You can see here that we can create kind of meta class. This is methodological approach. Now we split it, this meta class, in 5 objects. There are methodological approach, epistemological approach, ontological approach, and data collections and data analysis approach. And each approach, each meta class is divided in class. Each class is divided in subclasses, or subclasses 1 or subclasses 2, and each subclass is indexed by phrases in the article. So there is a connection between the ontology by a phrase, methodological phrase, with the text, with the article. We try to weight the articles and before we classify them, because the weight will be used for, because the phrase can be seen in different part of the text structures. Normally we can see the phrase in an abstract, in a keywords, but we analyze the abstract, keywords, title, and the body of text. The body revises the usage of the abstract and the keywords. Here we can see that we have, for example, a class of ethnography. methods. The class of ethnography consists or is split in three subclasses. There can be ethnographic methods. You can see it in some subclasses too. We extracted 88 items of ethnographic approaches. You can see this is carnal, autobiographical, art-based, critical ethno, micro-ethnography, cyber-ethnography, etc., etc. These are especially methods we use, people are used, qualitative researchers in their article written about the qualitative research. There are ethnography forms. Forms can be perceived as kind of technique. Okay, we can use poetry, but this is different that we use ethnographic poetry or art-based research poetry, for example. This is different to use ethnographic performance or to use, for example, biographic performance or something like that. We can use ethnographic theater, ethnographic diary, etc., etc. These are forms, techniques, and this is a kind of group of set of subclass which is connected to language, methodological language. There are phrases, so it can be design, exploration, fiction, ideas, insight. There are things, there are words connected with the class of ethnography which describe the ethnography as a class of methodological approaches. The second example is about the data analysis. Data analysis approaches is a meta-class. This meta-class can be splitted in subclasses, in classes, a set of analysis approaches. We are just working how to name, how to call these subclasses, because these classes, because it's very difficult. This is not exactly the same structure with data collection. Okay, these classes or sets of analytical approaches can be splitted in sets of analysis methods, forms, and phrases as before we have seen. And each method, for example, as you can see in subclasses 1.1, can be splitted in small elements. We can get together audio-visual analysis, cinema analysis, video, film, image analysis in one subclass, visual analysis. If I would like to find, for example, any visual analysis, I get a piece of text, a set of text, especially dedicated to this kind of analysis. I can go further and try to find, for example, just image analysis, because I imagine that I would like to use in my research, for example, kind of new image connection with interview research. There we can talk analysis, linguistic, Bakhtinian collocation, concordance, discourse. There is a huge subclass consisting a lot of specified critical discourse analysis, Foucauldian discourse, etc., etc. We spotted 149 items of different types of analysis in this research. Finally, we plan, after we finish this dictionary and this classification, we plan to get a few data matrices such as class by classes or subclasses by articles, just to classify the articles and just to have a corpus classification, just to search, just what we want to know is very useful for researchers who won't like to know or just to research this article. And subclasses, for example, by subclasses in time, because we have 28 years, so we can just follow the trends in developing any kind of analysis approach. And for further, this will be useful, these matrices will be useful for further network and multi-dimensional analysis of qualitative research practices. Before we doing the qualitative research field, or domain ontology, we did 2 pilot studies to test our research and data analysis methodology. Of course, it's still developing, this methodology is still developing. Because of doing domain ontology project, we have to face up to new ideas, concept, in example, how this ontology and classes, subclasses relation should be presented or should be searched later. In first pilot study, we examined 333 chosen articles from qualitative research, qualitative inquiry in qualitative journal of qualitative, International Journal of Qualitative Methodology, from the years 2002-2015. And in a second, we examined 4,309 articles from years 2002-2016. We extracted, as you can see, about 10,000 methodological terms. But what's important, and what's as I can see it's important, that only 23% of terms, methodological terms occurred in these articles occur more than once. So each text give us, 75% of text give us a new methods. This is a huge creativity and the vast amount of knowledge. When we can see that this is about 350 published articles per year. So we get a lot of new methods, techniques, but these methods and techniques doesn't I can say they are not so new as we can perceive, because they are very similar, or they are named in another way than in private, in primary, for example, source. What's important that the data show that it's rather a data collection process, and methodology is clearly described by scholars in the articles, but qualitative data analysis procedures are still a black box for readers. Scholars often use unsuitable procedures to describe, to analyze the data they gathered. For example, author declared that he or she uses grounded theory approach to interview coding, but finally he is doing qualitative content analysis. There is a lot of such methodological and analytical misunderstanding. This is one of important reasons of methodological disorder and terminological chaos in the field of qualitative research. Okay, this is an example of word clouds of interviews and or dialogues. For example, you can spot a lot of different types of dialogue. When we built this dictionary for domain ontology of qualitative research, we have to classify, we have to check all these methods with the text, just with internet. We have to communicate with other researchers just to validate our classification. So this is a huge task just to find a clear explanation for this dictionary, domain ontology dictionary. Finally, we try to build a kind of network representation. This is an example of network representation of domain ontology. It has been done only with 47 methodological terms extracted in a second pilot study. You can see how methodological synsets are created, how qualitative research methods are bounded. Okay, here you can see, for example, there is a lot of synsets. There's 4 synsets. One is centered around interviewing and is connected with grounded theory, data analysis, focus group, etc., discourse analysis. And there is a second which is merging participatory research with, this is in blue, participatory research with visual methods. the huge new field or new set, synset rather, is art-based research. We have to classify a lot of, in our dictionary, art-based forms, art-based methods. This is a very developing area. And the last one is narrative inquiry, narrative study, and biography study. So this is only an example how this ontology will be visualized in the future. We plan using this classification dictionary. We plan just to go deeper, vertically, horizontally, just to search, just to find a synset. The idea is to see how the field is organized. We don't have in our minds any presuppositions of how the ontology should be perceived. The idea of network ontology is the way we can not only merge these topics, methods, approaches, etc., but we have to make better orientation in the field. Ontologies in the qualitative research field. Ontologies have become a prominent topic in computer science, where they serve as explicit conceptual knowledge models that make domain knowledge available for semantic web, where they provide the semantic vocabulary used to annotate website in a meaningful way for machine interpretation. As studied in the context of information systems, ontologies borrow from the fields of symbolic knowledge representation, artificial intelligence, from formal logic, automated reasoning, and from conceptual modeling in software engineering, while also building a web-enabling feature and standards. Ontologies provide a shared understanding of a domain text. With their appearance, usage, and classification, they address for concrete meta-language, which is important for communication between scholars and between scholars and machines. They can be used to support a great variety of tasks in different domains, such as knowledge representation, natural language processing, information exchange, collaborative systems, database, etc., etc. So I think that the idea of domain ontology can be effectively used in qualitative research field. Thus, a fast and efficient ontology development is a requirement for a success of many knowledge-based systems and for the semantic web itself. Okay, why we need the ontology? The last slide. I mean that we need ontology not only to discover new qualitative research practice and data analysis approach, or to organize present-day knowledge, to articulate this erudition, etc., etc. But the important element is that we can shape a consistent way of grasping innovations in research practices. We can lead the enhancement of research procedures and its transparency. We can communicate between scholars using language, the same meaning. Not only creating new methods, new techniques, which are very similar to the base-grounded knowledge from qualitative research. So, the domain ontology can facilitate communication between qualitative scholars. We can create methodological discourse in the field, which is very pure, rather. We can facilitate management, use information about what's the main important point, that we can better teach students about qualitative methodologies, and to contribute to a coherent image which help us to predict methodological trends in qualitative research field. Thank you very much. I cooperate with the people Janne Gajda, Daniel Platek, and Natalia Martini. Thank you very much for your attention.